to order the Thursday, February 21st, 2019 meeting of the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. I need to say that all over again? Yeah. So good evening, good afternoon. I don't know. Now I'm totally confused. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We will call to order the February 21st. I need to give it up. Meeting of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. And with that, I would ask for the public announcements, please.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. Copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby of this conference room. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representative to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please write your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the lobby. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please sign in on that same sheet. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available in the lobby. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to district court.
Okay, with that, we will move on to agenda item number 1, approval of the MAPC meeting minutes from February 7th, 2019.
I'll move.
Second.
I'm sorry, who made that motion? Okay, a motion by Mr. Hartman, a second by Mr. Green.
I need to abstain from that.
Yes, we have several abstentions. Bill Johnson, Don Klossmeyer, Mr. Florence, and Mr. Joe Johnson. Yes, Mr. Foster.
This is a question for legal. On page 8 of the minutes, item 4, it refers to a deferred to a later date. The question is, does that date need to be referenced in the minutes so that they don't have to re-advertise? Is that okay?
We didn't know the date, that's why.
Well, they'll need to re-advertise
Yes.
it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dool, did you have a question as well? Okay, thank you. Okay. All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving on to agenda item number 2. Consideration of subdivision committee recommendations. Agenda item number 2.1, sub 2018-00038, final plat, Lang 4th edition. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, we'll take that item on consent. Item number 2.2, sub 2018-00040, revised one-step final plat for townhomes at Reed's Cove Edition. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that would like to hear this case? We'll take that item on consent. Item number 23, sub 2019 00001, one-step final plat for Wilson Farms 5th edition. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that would like to hear this case? We'll take that item on consent. Item number 24, sub 2019 00002, one-step final plat S&H Ranch edition. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear this case? Being none, is there anybody in the audience that would like to hear this case? Okay, we'll take that item on consent. Item number 25, sub 2019 00003, one-step final plat, Riverside Multifamily Edition. Is there anybody in the commission that would like to hear that case? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that would like to hear this case? We'll take that item on consent. Item number 26, sub 2019 00006, one-step final plat, Newbie Acres Edition. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, we'll take that item on consent.
Madam Chair, I would love to move for 2-1 through 2-6 to be approved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Joe Johnson, a second by Mr. Dool. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. And here comes Mr. Blick. Okay, agenda item number 3, public hearings. Number 4, case number CUP 2018-00052. That's going to be deferred, and the date is still to be announced. Number 5, CON 2018-00041, and this item was deferred from the 2/7/2019 MAPC meeting, so we will hear that case. And case number ZON 2018-00052 was deferred from the 2/7/2019 MAPC meeting case. We will need to hear that case as well. Item number 7, case number ZON 2019-00001. Is there anybody on the commission that would like to hear this case? Yeah, okay. We will hear this case.
I'll be recusing myself from that item.
Thank you. And do I need to go? I don't need to go over these, do I?
Well, because you got to do things.
Okay. Moving on to non-public hearing items, agenda item number 8, DER 2019-00003, set public hearing for Northeast Heights Neighborhood Comprehensive Plan Amendment. Is anybody on the commission? We have to hear that, so I'm not even going to ask. We just have to hear it. And we also have to hear case number agenda item number 9, case number DER 2017-00003.
Actually, on item number 9, we're recommending that the Planning Commission take no action. We'll likely bring that back in a month.
Okay. All right, so we will go back to item number CON 2018-00041. And I know because we heard this case previously, unless you have any questions from Dale, staff will not present. Is there any questions from Dale? Yes, Mr. Richardson.
Dale, in your recommended for approval, you're referencing a site plan that I think is missing some characteristics, one of which is the height of the fence around the outdoor runs, and the other is the fencing material around the outdoor runs. You're referencing approval based on the site plan, and I think it should have some more detail.
Yes, I know in the presentation last time he indicated it would be an 8-foot tall fence. I don't remember that he said what it was, but he can clarify that today, and that would be made part of the record.
just want to make sure if it gets approved, that gets on the site plan as
Yes.
a part of the record. Okay.
Certainly.
Foster.
Dale, you may have said this earlier, but what was the vote of DAB 6 on the 4th?
I think I did say it before, but I don't remember now. Were you at the DAB meeting? Do you remember what the vote was? Yeah, and I've got, my notes are not the same notes I had
I
from,
think you said it was something like 8-3 or 8-4 in favor.
that sounds right.
The second,
Number 5. Is it number 5?
the second question is, in the staff report under adjacent zoning for the east side, it references general retail, but yet in the report and other information, there is a residence northeast of the property. Is that not correct?
Northeast across the street, there are residences, north of the lots that front Central, if that's what you mean, yeah.
Then one final item in the staff report on page 4, item number 5, on the findings, opposition or support of neighborhood residents. At the time of this report was prepared, staff had not received any negative comments regarding the application. Now, we've got some stuff in front of us today, one being a negative. Should that be updated, or does that stand?
Well, this information won't ever go to the council depending on what happens here today. But yes, the one of the ladies who spoke at the at the meeting before has submitted an email that's all at your places, where apparently she and the applicant have come to an agreement, and based on the email, she seems satisfied with the proposal. This would be the property owner on the east side of the street to the northeast. I believe the property owner immediately north is here, and so you'll probably be able to hear from her. But the lady who spoke first at the last meeting has submitted that revised email. The way I read it, she's saying she's good with the proposal and does not
But the
oppose
other
it.
one is not, correct?
And I believe she is here and can speak.
Thank you.
Any other questions by the commission? Seeing none, we will ask the agent or applicant to come forward to present, and you will have 10 minutes. Oh, would you be sure and state your name and address, please?
Thank you. There you go. My name's Blake Bauer, 2801 Palmer Circle in Manhattan. And I had spoke to you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be back here today. I have some of the same slides and some additional slides to help us answer some of the questions that were brought up 2 weeks ago at the meeting. For the ones of you that weren't here, I'll try to go through some of these but don't hit on them too long. We do have facilities in Merriam, Manhattan, Leawood, and Topeka open. My Lawrence facility opens in a couple weeks, and then this Wichita facility that we're looking at, and these are pictures of the outsides of those buildings. We offer day play, night stay, grooming, and then in some of those locations, kitty care where you can keep your cat as well. In this facility, we don't currently have that in the plans. This is a little smaller facility than some of our others. Specifically, I want to show you the facility. I think it's very important to get your eyes on the facility because many of the facilities that you'll see around town, or not just here but other places, are facilities that are run down, haven't put money back into their location. We have a facility that's going to have specifically canine grass outside that's specifically made for outdoor use. We have 8-foot tall vinyl fences, and that's fine to be added to the site plan. Mr. Richardson, you noted that, and that's more than fine to be put directly on there because that's what we do in vinyl and 8-foot tall. And then inside we have epoxy and rubber flooring that's holds up well to animal use and also is good for the animals. So I thought that was really important to show you on all those. Specifically also on the vinyl fence, I'll let this run as we're going. This is a picture of our Leawood facility. It's a much bigger facility than this one's going to be, but just to show you that 8-foot vinyl fence that stretches all along there. The reason we have that is for security for the animals, also sight. Just because a fence is 8 foot tall, if they can see through that and there's gaps, that's what causes a dog to bark. They see something they can't get to. Well, the idea is what those fences that we keep the visual out so that they just know what they have there in the facility, and that keeps their stress down. If it keeps their stress down, it keeps their volume down. If it keeps their volume down, I have happy employees, happy other animals that are in there, other pups that are in there. So it's very big to have that security. And you'd be surprised. You can't just have a 5-foot fence, or you can drive by some facilities here in town and have a 5 or 6 foot fence. Those dogs can jump. It is amazing, but they really can jump over fences. That's why we have the extra on the 8 foot. It is referenced in the site plan and on the elevations that are in there with that as an 8-foot elevation also on how that'll look. Specifically, this is our Topeka location that opened 2 weeks ago. You can see the outdoor. This was taken 2 days ago. I took them off our security cameras to show you. We've got 5 little dogs in the indoor play area. You can see that on the indoor how we divide the dogs by temperament. This helps also keep the dogs in good order so that they're around dogs they're like size and like temperament. That keeps them happy. Once again, this is all around keeping the dog so that they are that they aren't loud and that they aren't causing other problems. Another quick question is that if your dog is being loud or this dog is being loud or aggressive toward other animals, we will ask that dog to not come back. I mentioned that in the last time, but we will deselect you to be one of our guests or customers. We want to only keep the people around and the dogs that work well together. The facilities, it's also brought up on the kennels. I wanted to show you specifically on the use. This isn't a thing where we put your dog in a crate in the corner. They're made specifically by one of 3 manufacturers that produce at this level in the United States. This group's out of Kansas City, Shoreline, and those are the kennels that we keep inside. And then we also have the luxury suites. This is a dog that's in a higher end luxury suite, or this is what it looks like with the doors open, and this is several of them in our Manhattan facility. As I mentioned in my last one, I grew up on a farm in Clay County. This is a little bit foreign to me to have your dog have a luxury suite, but that is the way that it's going. And it isn't just millennials that are spending more on money on dogs. Everybody is having and spending more time and energy and money on their pup. It is like their child. This is some of our finish on our indoor facility. Thought it was important to show you the finish, the LVT that we use and the wood grain LVT. You can see that the same thing in the hallways here in the grooming area. A dog right there is getting groomed in our Topeka facility as of a couple days ago. Just thought once again that was important to show the group the likeliness of finish, because I don't think that there's a facility in Wichita that has this level of finish and we're going to put approximately $400,000 to $500,000 back into this building to make it up to our standards. I think that's important to know that we're pouring that money back into the facility, and we're just going to open and turn them loose and that to run up and down that building. There's been several key issues that have come up in here: groundwater, health, property values, chemicals are the big ones. Okay, one of them I really want to talk about is the chemical and cleaning of the facility. Rescue is what we use, and I mentioned this in the last one as well. It's a disinfectant and deodorizer that we use, and 80% of veterinarians use it in their own facilities. And broad spectrum of disinfectant that's based primarily in hydrogen peroxide. Same stuff you put on your owie on your finger when you cut yourself to clean the wound. A lot of things about rescue because the big question is, and I know that Darlene is one of the neighbors and she's here and we have talked. Her big worry is with her health and her autoimmune system that she has. And I am not a medical specialist by any means, and I know that she's had one person that has talked to her. But I have done the research on our chemical and the thing that we use, and it is this rescue, and I've used this, and the sources are the Henry Animal Health and also the Rescue Supply Company. And really, this has the lowest EPA toxicity rating at a category 4. It's hydrogen peroxide based. It kills pathogens within 1 minute. These are all very important to tell you that this isn't something that we have to put out there and it's got to sit there and sit on it for it to kill something. It's an instant impact type of deal where we're using this. It's very safe to be around for humans and for dogs. I think that's important to tell you because there are dogs everywhere in this world. There are vets everywhere in this world, and 80% of them are using this because it's safe. And that's why we use it. Specifically talking about Also on, Darlene had put a letter to y'all. I'm sure she'll address that. I just wanted to let you know that the other neighbor, Debbie Sigmund, who talked last time, she is fully behind us coming to the neighborhood. Sent an email to your group, which I guess you do have a copy of. Debbie did supply some information to Darlene 2 nights ago. I had done some research on zoological diseases and about how you would basically, how do you get something from an animal to a human? And really, there's a couple different ways. There's basically 3 ways. And I looked at the CDC, and I looked at the U.S. National Library of Public Medicine. It really comes into, did you touch them? So were you walking around barefoot, or did you touch that animal? Did they bite you? Or did you eat an infected piece of meat? Those are the things that the CDC and the U.S. Public Health says how you're going to get a zoological disease. I received that help from a veterinarian in Manhattan that helped find that information for me. I didn't go into tons of research in it, but I have done the research that came from the CDC and the U.S. National Library of Public Medicine. And I thought that was really important to tell you that I can't tell you that you're not going to get something from a dog, but usually it's going to come from a bite or touching. And in this case, it's not airborne. Airborne diseases don't come from animals. You don't see those on the news, and so I just I know in her letter it says that there's a chance that something could happen. I think you have to say that in the medical profession. From CDC in this, there's 3, and the chance comes from touch, bite, and eating the meat, and that's what the CDC says. So I just thought that was important to at least tell you on the research, and that's different from what I had brought and had that extra research then since my last meeting. Finally, on the elevations, I want to show you, we're going to make this facility look a lot better. We have those, and we've showed you that before. This is the site plan that shows just as it did before on same layout. This is the same on the interior that I showed you, where we're going to have a lobby, have grooming off to the side here with wash bays behind here. We're going to have indoor play yards and outdoor play yards, and then we're going to have those kennels that were made by Shoreline that allow for overnight stay for those animals. This is our home office. We believe being close to these animals is healthy. We have over 30 people in our home office right here that does all the back house functions for our Freddies and for our Wolves that we have. We have 31 Freddies that we also run out of this facility, and all of our employees, and we're right next to and use the same building that animals are in every day, and we believe that being in proximity is not a problem. Solid waste disposal was also an issue. We've addressed that, and I don't believe there's a lot of questions any longer, but we will have a dumpster out back we pick up daily, and so I don't believe there's any issues with that. The one final big item that we had is groundwater and distance to the neighbors, and I just want to point out that Darlene's house is 58 feet away, and then Debbie's is about 100 feet from the closest point in the yard. Going to the south, you're around 350 feet on average to the closest neighborhood, and the reason I bring that up is that's the closest line where a well can be. And that's the question is our dogs going to provide groundwater problems? Water flows in this neighborhood from north to south because of the rivers, so groundwater follows that same direction. And what I did is I did some research with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment on their guidelines. Their section 2830, number 8, says that you can be 50 feet away from it and still be safe. And so I think that's important to show you.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? We start. Mr. Richardson?
Thank you for that presentation. My main concern last time was about noise. It still is a concern of mine. Would you be willing to cut back the operating hours to 7 in the morning instead of 6:30 during the week? For the outdoor, I'm talking about the outdoors.
I appreciate you asking, and I know what you're saying on that. The problem is, I'm just thinking out loud here. Because I've been trying to find solutions, and I have with Debbie on a lot of items in which she has us now. The problem is that people could start dropping off at 7, and if I have those dogs that have kenneled overnight, they need an opportunity to go out and come back in. They don't start being outside at all at that time, but they are allowed at least to go out. So I have an employee that shows up at 6:30 and lets those dogs that have been in their kennels, because they are kept all night in that kennel. So I have a hard time at being able to bring that now to you.
The dogs during the day don't show up till 7? Is that
Correct.
What you're saying?
That's the first time that somebody could actually drop them off. If you go to our facilities, though, it's 7:55. It says they're driving to work.
Thank you.
Mr. Foster?
Just one question. I want to make sure I understand that on the outdoor hours, if you tally them up, it's a total of around 8 hours per day. Do I read that correctly?
That's the availability of it. They aren't out there all the time, though. We will have indoor-outdoor use, and so we put the full availability hours that are on there, yes, but they absolutely aren't out there all the time. Just as I showed you on that Topeka project, there were no dogs in that outdoor at the time that I took that photo.
Thank you.
Mr. Blick.
Question I had last time was the trash receptacle, and I think you alluded to that question again this time. You said you get picked up daily. So last time you said that you're going to be picked up every 2 weeks, and with being that solid waste and stuff being pretty close to the northern property. So is that changed now? It's weekly or daily now?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, there's two references on that. I'm not changing my stance on it. It's picked up daily here in the internal level, so no feces are out there on the surface. As soon as something happens, it's picked up and it's bagged, and then a couple times a day we will double bag it and then put it in the main trash can, and we will pick up once a week on the main trash can, which is this big one.
So we're once a week now instead of 2 weeks, what we were last time.
And I said 1 to 2. I said 1 to 2 because our Merriam store does twice a week. All the other of our stores do once a week.
Okay.
And so I had said 1 to 2 last week, and I would expect 1 here.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Thank you. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak on this case? If you'll step forward to the podium, state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Darlene Gottstein, 715 North Flora, Wichita, Kansas. And I'm the neighbor to the north of the proposed doggy daycare. I am concerned about my health, my quality of life. I'm concerned about the value of my property. I'm concerned about noise, odor, traffic, potential of airborne parasites, parvo, flies, fleas, ticks. I'm concerned about the chemicals. I have a history of migraines and autoimmune disorder. I'm interested in the potential of water well contamination. I was not aware of some of the items that were said at the last meeting, so I wanted to address those. I definitely had never heard that there was a possibility that the dogs would be outside 8 hours every day. I've just retired. I don't want to be confined to my house because of the noise. I brought a letter from my doctor, and yes, I do have a history of autoimmune, and regardless of what any agency says, that anyone that is familiar with autoimmune disorders, it doesn't matter whether it's safe. At any given time, if you have an autoimmune disease, that you can become sensitive to an item. And things that you've used all your life, one day you use them, the next day that it can affect you. The parcel of ground is under the 5 acres, and I think that in itself should disallow them from putting in this facility. I agree, they have a very nice facility, and a lot of people will use it, but I don't think it'll be used in our neighborhood, and there'll be a lot of people driving in from other areas dropping off the dogs. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Okay, thank you, Darlene. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this case? If you'll step forward to the podium and state your name and address, please. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name's Joe Mackey, 730 North Flora, which is about 3 houses north of Darlene. After comparing existing kennel requirements with this application, with the acreage required and whatnot, I'm wondering why we're even here. But with that being said, my major concern is barking dogs. A dog's bark can be heard for at least a mile or more, and that will definitely disturb the peace. There's several retired homeowners that now and then like to take naps, and that's definitely going to cause a problem. I have a handout, just one copy, by Dr. Craig Mixon, describing in great detail numerous negative side effects of barking dogs. Anyway, my other concern is the waste of the animals. And as we all know, on a hot day, that can be a problem with odor. My other concern is parking and traffic. During major peak traffic times, all those individuals trying to drop off and pick up their animals when traffic is backed up for 4 blocks east of the light there at Central and 235. And that's about it. Thank you.
Sir, sir, Joe, can you remain at the podium just a minute and let me make sure the commission doesn't have any questions? Okay. Any questions from the commission? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this case? Sir, if you'll step forward and state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. Mark Miller, 2002 West 31st Street North, Wichita, Kansas, current owner of the property that we're discussing. And I just wanted to make a point about property values. I can't imagine that someone wanting to put more money.
Sir, are you the applicant?
Yes.
Okay, we can't have you present during this time. Sorry. I apologize. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this case? Okay, seeing none, I will bring it back to the applicant for 2 minutes rebuttal.
Madam Chair, you might mention that the gentleman that just, the owner of the property, he could speak at this time as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
During the same 2 minutes?
Yes, if he'd like to speak during the same 2 minutes, if he'd like to come up and speak with...
It's fine. I think I can say the things that Mark was going to say.
Okay, thank you.
And the point is that we're going to pour some money into this facility, and it isn't going to be a deal where we're going to open up and treat it unpoorly. And we want to be in this neighborhood. We want to be on the west side of Wichita and support all the people of west side of Wichita. We think that we'll bring a lot of synergy to those other businesses that are along there. Those people that are going to spend money with us might spend money with other people that are along that street as well, whether it be furniture, a topper for your truck across the street. And by the way, the toppers for the truck across the street are pretty expensive too. You know, the people are going to spend those money, and we're going to bring other people that are going to be willing, and I think investing in that neighborhood is a very big deal. I think we've addressed the groundwater issue, that is not an issue. The river flows the other way, and you can put a well within 50 feet of a septic system or a feedlot, and the water is still safe. That's from the KDHE. So I think we've crossed the water, the issue. I really feel that we've crossed a lot of these issues that are there. We've shown that we're safe. We've shown that we have other facilities, and anything you've looked up on our website or not, that we take care of our facilities. We have a history of operating and not just opening something and turning it off with our Freddies that are across the U.S. and North Carolina, Texas, and Omaha. We have a facility in Manhattan just to help all the back of house so that my manager can focus on the pups and the parents that come in the door. And so I really feel we'd be a great addition to Wichita, to the west side of Wichita, and specifically to the central corridor.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Mr. Klossmeyer.
Your other facilities, how many are similar to the location of this here? In other words, with residential close by? And what were the sizes of them as opposed to we have a 5 acre here that is down to a half acre basically. What?
Sizes of facilities are all the same as this. They're within a half acre to an acre. Some of them are in multi-tenant buildings like in Manhattan. Only one facility that we're about to open in Lawrence is close to residential, and that one's about to open, but it passed all the code issues that we had there on getting approved in. And we had in there we had to put a 15-foot landscaping barrier around. And so we've met other conditions in other places, but none of them are on 5 acre spots. And more, as you see, there's franchisees and there's other people coming to this market, and none of them are going on 5 acres. They're going in half acre to acre spots in similar to all of our facilities in this one.
Thank you.
Other questions from the commission?
I noticed there was 30 seconds left. If the owner of the property wants to speak, he can he?
Mark, do you want to take this 30 seconds?
I think we're good.
Okay. Yes, please.
Mark Miller, 2002 West 31st Street North, Wichita, Kansas. And just basically wanted to say that I can't help but think that it's going to improve the value of the property if they're actually dumping more money into the property than what it's being purchased for. So, thank you.
Any questions from the commission? Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to present on this case or speak on this case? All right, seeing none, I will bring it back to the commission for action. Mr. Warren.
Make sure I'm on here. I can appreciate the concerns. This is a little bit different being this close to residential properties, but I believe that the applicants have gone way above and beyond what it would take to protect the neighbors in this situation. You have living in an area that I have no idea how many owners have dogs that live, in close proximity to this property. So the fact that there are dogs that are living in the area is not unusual, and yet this is one that's going to be cleaned up on a regular basis. I think the quality that we see from that standpoint takes care of that. I would move to approve as presented, including the condition of an 8-foot vinyl fence surrounding all outdoor areas where the dogs would be allowed to
Second.
roam.
That second from Mr. Green. All right, we have a motion to approve and a second. Mr. Duell.
I'd just like to comment that this was a commercial business in there prior to this that had gone out of business, and you don't know what kind of a business might move in there, and I think that the neighbors probably ought to weigh out what other types of businesses in relation to this could move in there, because it's zoned for this type of business. That's all I've got to say.
Other discussion. Mr. Bill Johnson.
I just want to state that I know that to deal with the 5 acres, but if there was 5 acres, there'd be more dogs there, so I don't have a problem with it being less than 5 acres.
All right, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
4.
Foster. Richardson. And Miles.
Okay, motion carries. All right, moving on to agenda item number 6, ZON 2018-0052, and Dave is here to present.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dave Yearup with staff. This is a request to rezone property in Sedgwick County. It's an 80-acre tract, more or less, on the west side of 151st Street. We're roughly a quarter mile north of MacArthur Road. This request is, the property is presently zoned rural residential, which allows a minimum of 2-acre lots. The request is to take it to SF20, which would, under the zoning code, allow down to 20,000 square foot lots. However, because of the circumstances, I think the intention when this comes forward with the plat, which will not occur until after the zoning is changed, the intention is to go down to 1 acre lots. The reason for the 1 acre lot is that there will be an extension of rural water north along 151st Street from MacArthur Road from Sedgwick County number 5, and that they will use on-site sewage systems, which under the sanitation code is at 1 acre minimum. This is an aerial of the property in question. The Citizens Advisory Board for District 3 heard this on February 4th, and I know that there were concerns raised about the drainage, and you can see some terracing that had been done on the property. It says in the staff report, we did confirm with the NRCS that there were no federal monies involved with those terraces. So if there are modifications made, there's no reimbursement of federal money. That'll be a matter that will be addressed at the time of platting. Generally, this is within the rural growth area of Wichita, and so it's recognized as an area that will eventually develop. This is obviously what's going on. This is looking north along 151st Street from MacArthur Road, where this is MacArthur, and we're looking north. The property in question is just behind this tree row. This is looking west at the site from 151st. You can see it's just open ditches. It's a gravel road as it exists, and primarily is just a farm field. Other looks at the site. This is across the road to the east. There is existing homestead on the property east across the road, and just another shot along the highway looking south, currently along 151st Street. The staff report gave you the detailed information about what's going on. Staff is recommending approval. This is primarily just to allow a little smaller lot size at the time a plat is presented. According to the agent, the intention will be to prepare the plat and bring it forward with that once we get the zoning issue resolved. So with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commission have any questions for Dave? Mr. Daly.
I've got one sort of curiosity. You said it was on rural water. Do you know where that rural water gets its supply from? Is it self-supplied, or does it buy it from Wichita?
I'm not sure who Rural Water 5 buys from. I don't know if anybody here is aware, but they serve a pretty large area on the southwest side of Wichita, and according to the engineer for the Rural Water District, they've got a 4-inch line along MacArthur Road, and the developer is already in contact with them about the ability to get lines extended up to this project.
We do have Scott Linda back here that can answer questions about drainage should we have any. So, other questions from the commission? Okay. Seeing none, we will ask the agent or applicant to come forward, state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Russ Avey, agent for the applicant with Boffman Company. Steve Kelly, the developer, is also in attendance if there's any specific questions about timing of the development and any other questions I may not be able to answer. Other than that, it's about as straightforward of a request as I can imagine, and I think Dave did a great job of giving an overview. I'll simply stand to answer any questions. I believe there are a few neighbors here in attendance this afternoon to address you, so I can hold my comments until the rebuttal.
Thank you. Questions from the commission. Mr. Foster.
Russ, just a point of clarification. In the minutes from the neighborhood group there, during Phil's presentation, he mentioned the current zone allows for 2-acre lots, and it is the developer's intention to develop 2-acre lots if the zoning change is denied. Is that corrected to 1 acre? Is that?
No. Under the current rural residential zoning, we would be permitted, based on having availability of rural water, the ability to develop 2-acre lots instead of 1-acre lots. So our zone change is simply to be able to allow development of smaller home sites. I suppose Mr. Meyer pointed that out to the CAB number 3 to make the point that the 80 acres will be developed one way or the other. We are simply looking for a more efficient manner of development.
So this is incorrect. It says intention to develop 2-acre lots. You want to do less than that.
That's correct. I would say that we would have the ability to do 2-acre lots. My apologies, I was not in attendance in that meeting, but Dave, do you remember something different?
Well, no, I think the minutes from the CAB meeting is correct, because the statement was they've got a right to develop 2-acre lots now. And if the rezoning is denied, that may be what they end up doing. But if it's approved, it would go down to smaller lots. That was the point.
Other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, we will take it back to the audience. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this case? If you will step forward, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Mike Dreiling. I live at 3700 South, 151st Street West. I'm just right across the street. The site you see on the diagram, that's my house. My concern is, where's all this water going to go? Because right now, if we get a 2-3 inch rain, our ditches are full. If we get a downforce. Now, if we get some more out there with the concrete and all this other pavement, it's going to cause erosion, not on my neighbors to the south of me, her ground, and it crosses underneath the bridge going east onto our property. My wife's and I property is just across the street from it. My concern is, are they going to put in catch ponds, and how big are catch ponds? And the other address is concrete. The leftover concrete, I've seen it happen before. They clean out their trucks and leave it right in the ditch, or they just, I noticed this last year on West Kellogg, they have these tanks where these trucks clean out their deals, and later on they take them off. But anyway, that's all I have to say about that right now.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? All right. Thank you, Mr. Riley. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this case? If you will step forward to the podium, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Excuse me. I'm Arlene Gearens, 3801 South 151st Street West. I'm this property.
Ma'am, if you can use the mouse, because we're recording and we won't be able to hear on the recording.
This is where my property is. And our real big concern is this water wash-off that's going to come out of this field. Because right now it comes from...
You got a lot of water?
It comes from this area down into this corner. Oh, didn't mean to get that on there. Well, anyway, it comes from that area of the field to the southeast corner, which comes directly into the ditch area that comes right past in front of my residence. And like Mike was saying, when we get these deluge amounts of rainstorms that come through there, it's overflowing the ditches, and the culverts are to their top, and then overflowing the roads and causing more erosion. And then that comes down through the field, like he says, under that bridge, and then causes more erosion there. So we're really concerned about the water runoff in this area. Also with that, there is plan of this alternative sewage disposal systems in each resident's property that will be putting a house in this area. And all of us that live around there have our own water wells, and we're fearing that it's going to contaminate the water. All of that liquid that's dissolved is flowing downward into the ground. So we're hoping that even if they bring rural water in, we still don't contaminate our own private wells because of this project going in. And not only that, this is going to greatly alter the farming process that we do right now in regards to the spraying of the row crops and in regards to the planting of the wheat, where we have to use anhydrous fertilizer, because in the past we've had people that will literally come to the edge of the road when we're out there applying the anhydrous fertilizer, and they will stand there and pinch their nose and just act like maniacs. And I just want to say, who puts the food on your table? The farmer does. So it's going to alter the fertilizer application that we'll use, plus the spraying, because spray will drift. And I don't care who you get your spray from, if it's the co-op or who it is, people will complain about a drift of some sort onto their bushes or trees, and then they'll be after you for killing their trees and bushes on their property, even though we have no intention because we watch it very closely, but they still have that idea that if it drifts, you're in for it.
Ma'am, your time is up. Do you need an additional 1 minute?
I would, because I'm asking or wanting to know, is there going to be a homeowners association rules applied to this area where housing is going to go into it, so there's not animals, horses and cattle brought in there, so that it remains a clean area. And also the part for the trash, a lot of it comes down through the hedgerow that's on that side there next to my house, and you're forever going out there and picking up stuff, and people don't care if it's a plastic jug, a plastic bag, or what it is. It still comes into the property, and we have to stop with our machinery so we don't run it through a combine or something to cost us major repairs. So those are my main concerns. So I hope that they think about this and look at the whole aspect of it, not just bringing in rural water and the sewage systems and all that, because it will deal with a lot of other situations. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Ma'am, can you stay up at the podium, please, and so I can allow the commission to ask questions?
Sure.
And we will start with Mr. Hartman.
You mentioned a bridge crossing somewhere. Where would that be?
I mentioned what?
A bridge? Or for drainage?
It's about south of our place, like right in through here. Because this is MacArthur, and it's up from there down through here. So this water flow comes like from back in here, clear across a draw that's getting bigger all the time because of the water flow that comes off that field. So that's where it's draining. And that's been cleaned out before because of the soil erosion coming down through there as the water comes across the property.
Where they'll have to do a drainage plan and not increase the drainage flow amounts at all on their property?
I don't know. I'm hoping that they have holding ponds or some sort of a waterway where that water can channel and not ruin the farm ground that was on the south side of where this is going to be turned into housing. It's a great concern.
That's one of the things that they'll have to address at the platting time is drainage. And they can't increase it any more than it is today.
And if it is, the ground is brought up high enough, then those residents that will build on the north side of the tree row next to my property, that's going to drain into my side yard, backyard. And I don't want problems there either.
Understand.
Okay.
Other questions from Mr. Blick?
Question, ma'am.
I see you, Mr.
The
Richardson.
property where it shows that you're over off 151st, the property just south of you, is that your land also, that field?
South of where my house is?
Yes.
Yes, that's my
Okay.
property.
That's what I was just wanting to verify. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson.
Did you say that during times of heavy rain that 151st Street is flooded, that the water goes over the top of the road?
Yes, it will.
And where does that occur? Down by the bridge or?
No, it comes off the field right north of my property. And because a lot of it drains to the southeast corner of that parcel of land wanting to be developed. So when the ditches are plumb full, the water has nowhere to go but over the road to the other side of the ditch, and then it fills that side up too.
And then my other question was, what sort of crops do you grow on that the land just to the south of this, that's your property? You're talking about spraying and so forth?
Right. It would be wheat, soybeans, or milo.
I see. Thank you.
The anhydrous fertilizer is put on usually when we would plant the wheat, and the spraying would usually be for the milo and the soybeans.
And that would be spraying for?
For weed control, basically.
Weed control, okay.
Some liquid fertilizer type situation, but mostly for the row crops. And like on the soybeans, you can almost plan on 3 times of spraying. You'll have a pre-emergent beforehand and then spraying right after the crop is planted and then spray again later as the crop is growing to control those weeds.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from the commission?
Well, I know a lot of people think that food comes from the grocery store, but it does come from farmers, so thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gerens. Is there anybody else from the audience who would like, if you'll step forward to the podium, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Larry Fassbender, 3401 South, 151st Street West. I live to the property north of this proposal here. My concerns are the same as Arlene's, the spraying of the crops, drip control. Most of the chemicals that they use out there will smoke a tree. These people in residential areas, they do not like us because they're tree damage. Another concern is this housing development will back up to a half a mile of my field along the side of it. We get kids out there. They drag materials out there. They do it. We all know it. I've ran extension cords through machinery before. Rolled up extension cords around pieces of equipment that it took me 2 hours to dig out. Another concern is the water wells. Regardless of what the last proposal guy with the dog deal says, you know, you put a water well within 50 foot of a cow lot, yeah, it's going to be contaminated. Back in the 80s, they did a deal on that there that grandfathered everyone with a cow lot that owned cows and pastures. You signed this petition, you know, you was not liable for any contamination downstream. Don Claudemeyer probably knows that due to his dad's place. Other than that, that's all my concerns.
Okay, questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this case? Yeah, so who should I start with? Probably Scott. Mr. Lindeback, could you come back and can you come up to the podium, please, and just take a minute to talk about the concerns with the drainage?
Absolutely. Scott Lindeback with Sedgwick County Public Works. I'm one of 8 engineers, licensed professional engineers that work at 4411 South Seneca for Public Works. We all meet every 2 weeks to discuss subdivisions that are being planned for this development. We get in the basement. We also meet with Kelly Dixon and as well as some other MAPC staff to talk about drainage, traffic. We also talk about road geometrics for safety. And what we want to make sure of is that when these developments go in, that they aren't going to make conditions worse for the public. We want it to be safer than what's going on out there now. We really appreciate hearing about the drainage issues in advance. That way we can look at these things in greater detail. If we need to work with the township to be able to cut a larger ditch through there or get additional road right-of-way during the platting process, to be able to better handle the drainage that's going along 151st, we will. One thing that we will ensure of is that new development has to provide stormwater detention, and so there will be some type of holding pond, either dry or wet, that will trap that water and slowly release that water over a period of time. And so hopefully there's not going to be a deluge of water going through your property and filling the ditches, but it'll be more of a controlled flow of water once the development, if a development is approved and proceeds on through. But there'll be a platting process. All plats usually happen to go through subdivision committee and then goes to the planning commission, and so there'll be two more opportunities to speak on this development, and at those are the times that staff, the public works staff, have an opportunity to review the improvements and make sure that they meet our standards that we have for subdivision design. But like Rob Harton was saying, you can't make drainage worse. You have to provide stormwater detention. It's a rule that was passed in 2010 by the county commission that any development that paves 1 acre of area has to provide stormwater detention. So, you know, for small developments under 1 acre in size, you don't have to provide detention, but in this case, you will have to, because of it's going to be over 80 acres.
Questions from the commission? Mr. Klossmeyer.
Scott, on Mrs. Gerens had mentioned the one against, you know, her property there, and everything's going to be built to the north. And I've been building for quite a while, and I know that the people right there, you know, if they just drain straight back, they're going to just flood her, basically. So will there be a master drainage plan for this as was required in the city?
Yes, there'll be a master grading plan and drainage plan. So a 4 corner lot grading plan that will require, as well as a drainage plan that deals with flood flows.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, thank you. Mr. Dixon, if you'd like to step forward and contribute to this conversation, we would really appreciate it.
Kelly, what we're interested in is they had questions about the improved septic system and how those work.
Why I was here.
Well, I was just going to let you guess.
I'm Kelly Dixon. I'm a codes and floodplain technician for Sedgwick County through Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department. The specific question?
In general, they were just curious how the improved septic systems work over the older systems relative to polluting private water wells.
Oh, okay. Well, the advanced septic system, which I believe we would require on small lot development in heavier clay soils, it's an aerobic treatment system. Basically, what that means is we inject oxygen into the septic tank, creating an aerobic environment, which is a pretty hungry bacteria. And that bacteria basically eats away 90% of what we put into that septic tank. It cleans the water up to within, like I say, 90%. The bacteria is gone. There is a small remaining amount, plus it does not do anything for the viruses. Science says it only takes about 2 feet of soil to remove the remaining bacteria and viruses. Therefore, within 2 feet of the disposal, this water is clean. And we can literally put it right into the groundwater at that point. This is a technology that's been around since the 50s. It was first established, I believe, by the Navy for getting rid of their wastewater on ships. It's been used around the country well back into the 80s. Was just introduced into this area in the early 2000s. But it does produce a really clean wastewater. It has to be clean because we dispose of it through a drip system, a pressurized system, which has literally just, it's a 1/2-inch tubing with little pinholes in it. And those pinholes are designed so that they only release X amount of water at a time. It has a managed flow rate. And we dispose of that water. That's the reason we use this in heavy clay, is because we time dose it. In other words, instead of a flush and go, it sits in the tank, it gets treated, and then it's time dosed for maybe 10 minutes every hour, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, so that heavy clay is able to absorb that water. We get that water, it goes through the soil, it also goes up through the plant root structure because we only bury it about a foot deep. That's so that we can get rid of some of the water through evapotranspiration.
Any questions from the commission? Seeing none? Thank you, Mr.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that, we will bring Mr. Avey up for a 2-minute rebuttal.
Again, Russ Avey, agent for the applicant. I'll actually stand for any questions about the land use decision that we're here this afternoon to make, knowing that full well a lot of these questions will be answered once Mr. Rose here presents the plat to the subdivision committee. If there's any questions for me or the developer.
Mr. Richardson.
Russ, can you go back to the aerial there just for a second? It looks like on the one I'm looking at, there's a row of trees across the south part of this property.
Appears so, yes.
Is that on the property? Whose property are those trees on?
One would have to assume, I would stand for Ms. Gerrans to clarify that, but oftentimes, more likely than not, they're on the property line. We would typically see a plat that would look to preserve that in some fashion through a reserve system or what have you.
And those, maybe she should answer, but are those trees still alive? I mean, I assume that they're still alive. My question.
They certainly looked alive last week or whenever Mr. Yearout took those pictures.
It's obviously in the wintertime now, but I was concerned about, we talked about the issue of spraying, and if those trees are still functioning on the property line there, in spite of the spraying, I think that kind of helps answer that question a little bit, that they've been pretty careful about what they do in order to save those trees. So just an observation.
Mr. Warren.
Russ, years ago, we had problems with people moving into subdivisions not being aware down the line that there were going to be future special assessments for projects maybe down the line. This isn't going to be a condition because I don't think it's our place to do that, but a suggestion would be that you might have people moving into this area that aren't aware of country life. You might put a disclosure out there that they are living in close proximity to working farms and that fertilizers and other chemicals may be used, and they need to be aware of that if they know on the front end, then it's their problem. So I would offer that as a suggestion, not as a requirement from us, but you let people know that country life's different.
Absolutely. That's good. That's good advice.
Other questions from the commission? Okay, thank you. And with that, I will bring it back to the commission for action.
I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Hartman and a second by Mr. Bill Johnson. And Mr. Foster has a question.
This is a staff question. I think the testimony from the neighbors is very important relative to the platting effort. How will they be notified so that they can participate in the platting process?
The only notification they'll get is there'll be another sign that will go up out on the property indicating that an application has been submitted for the property to be platted.
Can they request to be notified by mail, or has that ever been done in the past?
We'll do everything we can to try and do that, but
they need to keep in touch with the plant.
If they've signed in so that we've got a name and an address, then we'll make an effort to notify them.
Thank you.
Mr. Bill Johnson.
I just want to say, make sure they sign in, and that way you guys got their address so they can see some correspondence on this.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 12-0. All right, moving on to agenda item number 7, case ZON 2019-00001.
Good afternoon, Philip Zievenbergen with planning staff. We have a zone case this afternoon, looking to rezone a property located on the southeast corner of North Market and East 13th Street. You'll note there needs to be a correction on the first page of the staff report, noting that it's East 13th Street and east of North Market and not west in both of those locations. The zoning request is to rezone this property right here, which is currently Zone B multifamily, to GC general commercial with the intended use of a car lot. As you can see on the zoning map here, to the south and to the west is primary residential. Both of B multifamily and the yellow is TF3, which allows for two-family residential. Across the street to the west is limited commercial. It's a retail store that's currently vacant. Across the street to the north is also limited commercial. There's a car lot here on the northwest side of Broadway and 13th. This is a gas station and convenience store directly north of the property. Directly to the east of the property abutting it is GO, but it's actually currently a car lot as well. Something interesting to note about this property to the east and the property to the north, car lots are not permitted in these zoning classifications. In the limited commercial, it would need to be permitted with a conditional use. However, there is not one on this site just because when the Midtown Neighborhood Plan was adopted in 2004, these properties got downzoned, and so they are now legal non-conforming uses. This property to the east, which is general office, used to be limited commercial, and this BZA number that you see here was the conditional use that allowed the car lot to be permitted use on that location. So just wanted to make note of that, just kind of more little complications into this case. The applicant who owns this property operates the car lot to the east, and his intention is to expand the business. Here's the aerial that you can see. Here's the car lot that we have in question that he operates. This is the lot in question here. It has a dwelling unit on it right now. There used to be two. There was one right here as well. This is an excerpt from the Midtown Neighborhood Plan. This is the intended land use plan, so this is not official, but this is what they would like to see. And you can see here, this is the property in question. They're looking at it having single, detached, or duplex housing. Even where the existing car lot is to the east, really they're hoping that it would be more of a mixed unit fourplex or less type development. So really more of a residential feel, as well as keeping the commercial, which is up here in red, on the north side of 13th Street. Here are a few pictures of the lot. I'm standing on the west side of Market looking east at the property. What I wanted to show you here is this lot and how narrow it is, not to mention this existing dwelling unit to the south of the property is only about 2 to 3 feet south of the property line. So it's very, very, very close to the existing line. This is looking from the northwest corner of 13th and Market, kind of diagonal towards it. You can see the existing dwelling unit that's on the lot as well as the car lot that's behind it. This is kind of looking from the other angle. We're now more at Broadway, looking down to the southwest. Again, here's that car lot that's existing right there. Here's that dwelling unit and the rest of the property off to the west there. And then this is looking from Market down to the south, southeast, looking at the character of the houses that are directly south of the property in question. Staff's recommendation for this is to deny this request, primarily because the Midtown Neighborhood Plan specifically states and discourages auto-related uses like car lots, mainly because they do not directly serve the population that is in the Midtown neighborhood. Conversely, it actually encourages the retention and promotion of developing more residential uses, as well as commercial uses that do directly affect or directly serve the population of the Midtown neighborhood. We brought this case to the DAB last night. We have received a letter stating their opposition from the Historic Midtown Citizens Association. I received an email from another concerned citizen voicing his opposition to this. There were 2 residents who spoke at the meeting last night in opposition to this case, and the DAB itself approved our recommendation of this case to deny it unanimously 6-0. The final thing I'm going to say on this case is if the Planning Commission were to move to approve this zoning request, staff would recommend to approve the general commercial. However, produce a protective overlay over top that would allow uses only permitted in neighborhood retail in addition to car sales. All of the conditions in Unified Zoning Code will have to apply, and those conditions are stated in your staff report. And the applicant would then have to be required to submit a site plan that conforms to this, as well as the landscape ordinance and the conditions of the protective overlay. With that, I can stand for any questions.
Click.
Question I have is that now that lot is pretty narrow, and to my knowledge, commercial on the south side, they could go to a 0 lot line, couldn't they? If it was commercial, they could go almost all the way up against that house right on the property line?
Correct. But that's where we'd also put in the landscape ordinance that would require buffering.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Richardson.
So the type of screening required on the south side of the lot on the north side of this property, is that a wall? Is that, I mean, what is this? Is this 25 feet wide?
The lot is, let me look at my notes here. The lot is 43 feet wide. 43,
okay. And will we require a wall there, Dale, between the?
It would be a fence.
Be a fence?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In addition to some landscape, is that?
There is a requirement when you butt up against single-family residential that you have landscaping. With the fence, it would be one tree every 40 feet, I believe it is.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, I'd ask for agent or applicant to step forward. State your name and address, and you'll have 10 minutes to present on this case.
Good afternoon. My name is Bernardo Flores. I'm a realtor, and I'm speaking on behalf of the owner, Arturo Chavez. He's sitting there, just trying to convey, because of his limited command of the English language, he asked me to kind of speak on his behalf. I know this property very well because I sold him 2 years ago the two properties that we're talking about, where he wants to expand his present used car lot business.
Would you mind to state your address?
My address is 2563 North Hood Avenue, 67204.
Thank you.
I'm going to put here the drawing that he made, kind of explain a little bit more in detail what he wants to do. I don't know if it will be very visible, but basically he's been renting that corner lot where he's been there in business for 4 years now. And as far as I remember, I've seen those used car lots on both corners for many, many years. When we saw the opportunity to expand and purchase the other two properties, which were really in distressed condition, I remember lots of, huge, humongous trees, dead, mostly of them. They were kind of growing on top of the sidewalk. It was treacherous to walk on that sidewalk just, before he bought this property. So he has done a lot of things to improve the appearance of that part of the street, of 13th Street. And after refurbishing both properties, he saw the potential of expanding his business, so he demolished one of the properties, but the other one is in really, really good condition. And what he wants to do is, because of the limited space that he has now, his business is growing. He's an entrepreneur. He has put lots of, it's a family-oriented business. He has put a lot of time and effort in growing his business, which he has succeeded. Now he wants to expand it and expand the parking area. He's planning to put like a 6-inch concrete pad. Expected cost is over $30,000. That's what he's telling me, and just do whatever beautification screening that the city would recommend in doing to make this to be an asset to the neighborhood. I think that part of the street doesn't really interfere with other properties as far as appearance on the other side of the 13th Street. He bought this properties 2 years ago, and he has done a lot of work to them. So, I mean, for him, he would request to be granted his request to change that zoning to general commercial, so he would be completely established as a used car lot. One thing he wants to stress out is that he's not going to do any mechanical work, not either car washing. It's strictly used car sales business.
Hey, thank you. Mr. Blick.
Question is, so the structure that we're seeing to the east right there, next one over to the west, that one right there, and it's in the photo, that one's going to stay, is that correct?
Not it.
How about the other one?
Sir, can you speak? Can you stay at the podium and so we can hear you through the microphone, please?
Yes, this one. This one is the one that's going to stay.
So how are you going to get a car in and turn around? Because if
He's
that
going to make an approach on Market.
Sir, you'll have to speak into the microphone. Sorry.
He's gonna make an approach on Market.
come in and turn around and then go back out the same drive?
Yes.
So if you, and that's what, 25 feet wide?
40-some.
43.
120 feet?
43 feet wide.
The lot is 43 feet wide in this dimension.
I just see it looks like it's going to be pretty tight, especially if you get a vehicle on one side with that parking that you're showing and one on the south side, one on the north, and trying to back out and turn. It just looks like it's pretty tight space.
Couldn't get two in there.
I mean, he would accept any recommendations on the parking. The only thing that he has the parking area now, he has outgrown this parking. He has also, cars there, so that's why an additional parking will allow him to make this his business more appealable.
Thank you.
Mr. Richardson.
So this will be primarily parking for customers or for staff?
I would think would be mixed car and customer parking. I mean, used cars and customer parking.
So they would park here and then walk down the sidewalk on 13th Street to get to where the cars are? Is that?
Yeah, because he wants to expand put another office here. So basically, he would have some office here where he's presently right now, and he would have a new office there on the other property that he wants to save.
And the office would be in the structure that's going to remain there?
Yes, on the 215 East 13th Street.
So the plan would be to turn that into a office?
Yes.
Instead of residential, or perhaps a combination of those two?
Mostly would be office usage.
Okay.
Other questions from the commission? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak on this case? Okay. Seeing none, I will bring it back to the commission for action. Mr. Warren.
Folks, I got to tell you, I'm in a quandary here. It looks like a terrible place for a parking lot, and I can't think of anything that would be any better than a parking lot. I mean, it's a really difficult piece of land based on its size. Going to be difficult to use because of the traffic. It's never going to be good for multifamily again, which is its current zoning. And so, how do you use a property like this? And I can't think of any right now. I can't think of anything that would be better than a parking lot. As much as I don't like that idea, I don't like it at all. But I don't know what else to do with it.
Got a comment,
Mr. Richardson.
I kind of share Mr. Warren's thoughts here. We've talked about car lots before, and I know that a number of these neighborhood plans don't want car lots, but frankly, I think the idea of neighborhood retail with the overlay probably makes some sense. Car lot's about as benign an activity as you can possibly have. You don't have things going on at night. It's pretty much daytime only. It's low traffic. So from that standpoint, I think I would move to approve it subject to the overlay neighborhood. Help me here, Dale. It's the GC with a protective overlay that allows only neighborhood retail, with the exception of used cars, or a car lot, I should say. So I would make that motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Richardson and a second by Mr. Warren. Other discussion?
Question for staff. Is this, would this applicant be able to have a curb cut for 13th Street or not?
I am unsure of if there's any access control all along 13th Street. I failed to mention in my earlier presentation, but the DAB last night requested to add a condition into the protective overlay to prohibit access on 13th Street and only have access via Market.
Mr. Hartman?
I was just going to say, I'm going to be against this. I think the neighborhood has a plan put in place here, and this is one of the things that they do not want to see, and they voted unanimously almost to deny it. So I'm going to be denying it as well.
Mr. Bill Johnson?
It appears to me from the photo there's already approach there. It may not be the right width, but there's...
Market? Yeah, it's approach on Market.
Oh, it's on Market. I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Mr. Joe Johnson?
Your explanation a while ago is that the parking that's already there is legal.
The parking already here is legal.
Adjacent to it, yeah. Adjacent to the site we're considering.
Over here? To the east?
Yes.
Yes. It is a non-conforming use, but it's a legal non-conforming use.
Any other discussion? Mr. Daly?
I can't see anything better to go in there. And didn't you say that right across the street is a convenience store?
Correct.
Where there's going to be a lot more traffic going in and out later at night and maybe all night. I don't know if it's an all-night store or not, but you're going to have a lot more traffic there, and I can't think of any better place to put a car lot than in an area like this. It's on a main road, and so it's visible and you can get to it, and I really don't see anything else that could go in there practically.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to have to do a show of hands. So all in favor, can we see a show of hands?
5, 6, 7.
Okay, and opposed?
I didn't get the approved. I was halfway through.
Okay, so the opposed are Mr. Hartman, Mr. Blick, Mr. Florence, Mrs. Miles, and everybody else voted to approve.
7-4.
Mr. Foster.
7-4.
Oh, who abstained?
That's right.
Foster's absent.
Oh,
Or he
Mr. Foster
that's
abstained.
Right.
Yes.
So it's
7-4-1. Motion carries. Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 8. Case number DER 2019-00003. And Mary's going to present on this case.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Mary Hunt, Principal Planner with MAPD. The request before you is for the Planning Commission to set a public hearing for April 4th, Planning Commission meeting. The subject is a comprehensive plan amendment for a 1 square mile area in northwest Wichita. Basically, the amendment, I'm sorry, did I say northwest? Well, no, it's northeast. The amendment articulates in more detail the intention of our existing comprehensive plan in protecting the integrity of neighborhoods, and it recommends 5 policies to do so. They outline the standards of commercial development within this 1 square mile area and how to make the changing land uses in the area more compatible with a long-standing intact residential neighborhoods. So that's the question before you. And I'd take any questions if you have them.
For the commission, Mr. Foster.
Just a clarification on policy 4 on page 3. It references that it would be possible to use earthen berming equivalent to the height of the masonry wall. And, you know, if someone were to choose to do that to equal a 6-foot height at a 3-to-1 maximum recommended slope, it would take a 36-foot width out of that. And if they went to the 8-foot, it'd take 48 feet. So I don't know the practicality of that, but my question is the intent that that would fit within the 15 feet?
Mr. Foster, I think today we're just here to set a hearing. And so I think there'll be later opportunities to ask those questions and have that discussion.
I'll save that for when we have the hearing then.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Joe Johnson and a second by Mr. Green to set that hearing.
I have a question.
And we have a question by Mr. Richardson.
Mary, remind me, is this part of the urban core area that we've talked about?
Yes, it is. You mean the established central area?
I'm sorry,
Yes,
yes.
it goes up to 29th Street, and the boundary of this 1 mile area is 29th Street.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And they'll come back next month on the Delano neighborhood plan. I do want to let you all know that today is Anna's last day. She will be going to the mayor's office, so we appreciate your service to this commission, and we wish you the best at the mayor's office. And with that, we are adjourned.